afternoon, everyone. No greater scenario has made enterprise and organizations rethink their business continuity strategies better than the COVID-19 pandemic. The crisis has forced them to become more agile in order to quickly pivot from traditional processes to new age digital mandates. The new normal has underscored that indeed, technology can be a digital sword and shield in eliminating threats that endanger the social economic fabric of our cities and the country as a whole, while containing crises that manage to break out. I'd like to introduce the panel we have this afternoon. We have Mr. Jallain Manrique, CIO at KPMG Philippines. We have Mr. Carlo Malana, CIO at Globe. We have Mr. Yves Gonzalez, Google Head of Government Relations. We have Mr. David Almirol, founder and CEO at Multisys. And we have Mr. Gustav Eriksson, CEO of Collectius Group. Moderating the discussion, we have Mr. Jove Tapiador, President and CEO of Good Tech Holdings. Over to you, Sir Jove.
Thank you, Chino. We understand the COVID-19 pandemic has paralyzed business productivity and economic activity, forced employees to work from home, and put many individuals immobile. The global crisis has actually put chief information officers, and I would add chief technology officers, at the forefront of all organizations as they become caretakers of employee experience, enablers of business operations, essentially the go-to guy in these times of crisis. But if there's one key takeaway enterprises get from this crisis, it is the need for an agile and dynamic infrastructure and application landscape. Businesses need to come up with a strong digital transformation plan that aids business continuity and IT security. So when enterprises think of investments in ICT, they need to consider how their technological capabilities can empower them to create a dynamic ecosystem that protects their resources, minimizes risks, and enables strong recovery. So it's almost the end of the year, and it's December 2020. I think we would like to highlight the last phrase, enable strong recovery, but we'll go to that later. I'd like to give the floor to the panelists so they can introduce themselves, their companies, what they're doing. And I'd like to start first with Jallain Manrique, KPMG's CIO, and then followed by Carlo Malana, Globe CIO, Yves Gonzalez of Google, David Almirol of Multisys, and Gustav Eriksson of Collectius Group.
Thanks, Jove, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Jallain. I'm one of the partners here in KPMG in the Philippines. Now, as most of you might be aware, KPMG is a global firm, but not everyone is aware that we're also a digitally enabled firm. We provide services on digital, may it be on cybersecurity, intelligent automation, or anything on emerging technologies are also part of our services. Or if not, it enables us to deliver more efficient services in all of our clients. So happy to be part of this panel, and I look forward to the discussion.
Carlo?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Carlo Malana from Globe, and it's a pleasure to be part of this panel. Just a quick note, Globe is the Philippines' largest mobile provider with over 90 million subscribers and provides both mobile and wireline services to enable the Filipino digital life. Globe also maintains a focus in FinTech through GCash, as well as other areas such as advertising through AdSpark and our telemedicine through our Consulta MD. Finally, Globe is also a provider of information and communications technology to other businesses, from the big enterprises all the way down to the small, medium, and micro businesses. So anyway, I'm looking forward to having a great chat with the folks in this panel.
Yves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yves Gonzalez. I head government affairs and public policy for Google in the Philippines. So in my capacity, I've been working with the government the past 2 years. Specifically for 2020, I've been working closely on our response and recovery efforts to address the COVID-19 pandemic in the Philippines. And Google handles Google Search, Google Maps, YouTube is owned by Google as well, Waze as well, and then of course Google Workspace, which is the new name for G Suite.
Okay. David?
Hi, good afternoon. I am David Almirol Jr. I am the CEO and founder of Multisys Technologies Corporation. Currently, Multisys is considered as the leading software company in the Philippines. We are focusing more on innovation. So we are big in IT, in government, utility, healthcare, retail, academia, hospitality, and banking and finance. So our platforms are being used now by more than 2,500 clients in the Philippines and dozens of government agencies. So I'm excited to be part of this panel and discuss things. Thank you.
Last but not least, Gustav.
Thank you, Jove. It's a pleasure to be part of this panel. I was asked to prepare a little presentation. I'm not sure if that's showing right now. If not, is it? Okay. Anyway,
There we go.
Yeah. To introduce myself, my name is Gustav, originally from Sweden, living in Singapore. Started a debt management company, which has become the leading debt management company in Southeast Asia. We are, if you could take the next slide, please. We are funded by IFC, part of the World Bank Group. And as you all know, COVID has had a super big impact on the economy. But from our perspective in Collectius, we meet the people every day that are struggling, the people that are losing their jobs, the people that are afraid of losing their jobs. And this has put a tremendous pressure on all types of creditors in the market right now. And traditionally, I think debt collectors have been focusing very much on using fear and intimidation tactics to make customer repay their outstanding balances. And if I can have the next slide, please. Well, the Collectius way of doing this differently from what has been done in the past is that we want to meet the customer where the customer wants to be met. And we believe actually that all of our customers are wanting to repay their loans. So instead of focusing on the old way of doing it, we are instead trying to make it easy, convenient, it's pleasant for the customer to repay loans as possible. Just share some examples of how this can look. For example, if we're dealing with somebody's grandmother who's not so accustomed to technology, she might prefer to reach out to us through telephone. And in Philippines, for example, it's very popular to use Viber. So all these different channels are integrated into our system so that the agents can connect. And in Indonesia, the customers prefer to use WhatsApp. So it's all different in different markets, and we need to adapt our technology like this. And COVID has really pushed us to do this a lot faster. And if I can go to the next slide, please. And in the few, like what's already happening is that if younger members of the community that are more tech savvy, that a lot of customers don't even actually want to talk on the phone or chat to our customer service centers. So in those cases, we have developed a customer portal online where the customer can go in, log in, and download their bank statements, choose payment plans, change their payment plans, just to make it as easy as possible for the customer to settle. Traditionally, also in our markets here in Southeast Asia, many of the customers are used to do over-the-counter services for payments. And that is something that, of course, during COVID has been very difficult for the customers. So by offering everything online, we're making it even more easy for the customer. Then, of course, something else which has been, a big part of our technology shift is big data and analytics. This allows us to tailor make customer offerings based on customer profiling, which means that when we are targeting our customers, we don't just use one size fits all. We are trying our very best to use algorithms and AI to predict what kind of offer this type of customer will be most acceptable to. This way, we save a lot of time, and we can make the customer journey much better. We also, of course, use a lot of automation, for example, for reminders and other simple tasks that previously was managed by humans. And this frees up a lot of times for people working in the customer servicing centers, so that we can spend more time on customer care, customer service, and really understanding the customer needs and when those grandmothers are calling in. So this is Collectius. So I'm looking forward to answer any questions in this panel, and thank you for the opportunity to introduce.
Thank you, Gustav. Wow, we've got a distinguished panel of technologists, of people who have been providing exceptional service to the mass market. And generally, these are brand and household names. What is interesting is that the speed and the scale of the COVID-19 pandemic has pushed all enterprises and organizations to put in place more stringent measures, not just to cope with the crisis happening now, but also to mitigate threats and risks in the future. I'm sure the likes of KPMG, Google, Globe, Collectius, Multisys, they have encountered this. And it'll be interesting to dig deep a bit more on how technology itself can be as what some would say, both the shield and the sword in countering crisis, pandemics, other economic and societal threats. So let me go first with Jallain. Jallain, in your conversations with with your clients, with other companies, what did 2020 teach you in terms of building organizational resilience amid a pandemic?
Mhm. Thanks, Jove. Well, I'll probably relate it in the recent survey we conducted. It actually involves all of the executives of our clients, together with with the rest of the partners in KPMG. And the result of that survey is that we've seen that there's an global IT leaders reported a median additional spend of 5% of IT budget to deal with the COVID-19 crisis, which is good. Although we've also seen, based on the response, that there's an increase in cybersecurity threats. About 41% of the organization has experienced increased incidents, mainly from spear phishing and malware attacks. At the same time, even in a pandemic, there are still skill shortages, which is also a huge problem. So we're seeing that the massive surge in remote working would still require organizations to really leverage on digital solutions and technology in order to stay relevant and even to some extent continue business. So that's our outlook, Jove, so far.
Okay, quite interesting. So I guess one of the major impacts is not just a change in work, but also how it has disrupted supply chains, how people move, and the like. Is there any, I mean, if there is any positive outcome from COVID-19, what do you think would be those positive outcomes?
Well, I think speaking as an IT professional, it's really more of COVID did accelerate digital transformation for organizations. So the adoption of emerging technology, executives are now more open in terms of how can they leverage technology. And in the result of our survey, one executive did mention that nowadays, separating business from digital strategy has become old-fashioned, which means that in order to stay relevant, digital strategy has to be a main component of your business strategy. So I think that's quite a key takeaway from the discussions we have with executives of KPMG or the clients of KPMG.
Interesting. So Maybe this is an apt question for Carlo then. Given what Jallain has mentioned and shifts in terms of corporate behavior, how can organizations work hand in hand with customers, with partners, public sector, to help keep vital public services, infrastructure, and even business operational? I mean, the pandemic has shown us some of the weaknesses of these organizations, but it's not just a pandemic. Like there can be, like in the past month, there were several super typhoons. Um, how can organizations keep up, be resilient, and work with their ecosystem?
Yeah, thanks, Jove. Quite honestly, I mean, this is the puzzle to solve, right? Is being able to adequately work with our customers, our partners, and the public sector together. Let's go dissect this one at a time. First, let's talk about customers and how we work with customers. And I think every organization has a customer, whether they're a business or not, right? And for me, in Globe, we have this thing called the circle of happiness, where we talk about, first we need to have happy employees, to have happy customers that enable a business to have happy shareholders, which starts feeding back into happy employees, right? And so, I think the first order of business for any organization is to ensure that you have the capability to continue servicing the customers you had before the crisis. So the topic of business continuity, the ability to be able to quickly adapt and be digital within your own organization was critical. As an example, in Globe, we were actually planning for what we called our rotating operations to mitigate risk in our building the Friday before ECQ was determined. So I was busy trying to figure out how to split the teams and have enough bandwidth with half the team in the office. On Saturday night, I believe, the president declared ECQ, and we went from half the people will show up in the office to no one shows up in the office during that weekend. So of course, you have to be able to respond, and so having that ability to enable the employees through an environment where we had already a digital way of working. Most of us, at least in Globe, most of us were enabled with mobile devices and laptops already. We were all used to having at least partial or video conferences, not to the extent we are today. We're experts now, right? But think back like 9-10 months ago, most of us were probably doing some video conferencing, but still mostly in person. And so quickly adapting to that, and even with Yves and his company, I mean, we were using cloud-based technologies from Google as an example to quickly enable us to essentially shift the work, shift the work to where you don't have to see each other. So by first ensuring that we had that capability, at least for the majority of the employees that had to work from home, of course, we also had to shift our attention to the ones that couldn't. Because we also have our frontliners where you have to service the network, you have to install things. And this is where the working with the partners especially, and working with the public sector was critical. As an example, on the public sector, we really had to first even figure out, are we a critical service? Because essentially when the definition of essential came out, believe it or not, this sounds amusing today, but believe it or not, there was actually questions on whether telco was a critical and essential service. Like we didn't know whether our technicians were going to be allowed to move around to service telco and be able to do that. And so we had to partner quickly with the government and figure out, okay, yes, our techs can get IATF IDs and they can go actually take care and repair people's services or install services and so forth. So it was very critical to do that. And even now in today's world, there's still this crying out for more bandwidth, more performance, more ability to work virtual. In fact, yesterday, I mean, I believe we were part of the update with the press secretary and on the state of telco, and we still echoed the need for us to be able to partner well with our government in for example, being able to accelerate our permitting, being able to accelerate our build, because we all know that that's what we need right now is we need to be connecting more of the digital, more of the Filipinos into the digital life environment. So with that, I think, just to summarize the answer, it's a pretty long answer to that question, but it really needs to come together. And since we're in the business of connecting, it's actually absolutely critical that we still focus on those basics of, yes, we need to connect everybody, but in order to connect everybody, everybody still has their parts to play. It starts with, the ability of the organization to sustain their services through the crisis, and then ends with everybody working together in an extended community, whatever sector you're in.
Interesting. Before I go to Yves, and just one more follow-up question. Job CIO is definitely a tough job, especially for the past 6 months. But I noticed that we started with people and working around people and enabling them with technology. How has that shaped your perspective for the next 6 months? Because we've been trying to, this topic is about technology, but we started off with people. So how can people now adapt? And you mentioned that adoption and becoming capable for over the next year.
Well, in Globe, it's not just the next 6 months. It's kind of been the way we are, right? We like to take care of and always do the right thing for our customers, and all of that starts with people, right? And so it's at the end of the day, the technology has to be used by people for people. And even as technology practitioners, sometimes it gets easy to isolate about, hey, we start talking, getting excited about all the cool stuff that tech can do. But there's always a mission to tech. There's always a purpose to why we use the technology. And sometimes those objectives and purposes are very basic. It may be as simple as, hey, I need to reach out and hear someone's voice. I need to reach out and see someone's face. I need to make a financial transaction to purchase something. I'd like to send a note to somebody. And all of those things are all intrinsic behaviors that we as people do. It's just that with the technology available, it changes the way that we achieve those needs, and it changes the way that we look and determine how we fulfill those particular objectives.
Great, thanks, Carlo. I think that's the right perspective right now. We're still centered around people and people smartly using technology. So, Yves, as Google Head of Government Relations, a while ago we talked about, Jallain talked about the corporate side, Carlo about the organizations, Globe's experience in making people adapt to the new normal. How about on your perspective from the policy side of things as you interact with government? Are there any policy gaps, loopholes that government should re-examine to recover from a crisis like COVID? What are the lessons learned so we anticipate that in future crises?
Oh, that's a good question. So one of the things that the biggest lesson of COVID is really the speed, being able to be fast in reacting to the situation. And I think the year has taught us that it is possible, like especially during the early times around March, when working with government was really quite nimble in a very surprising way, getting approvals, being able to launch products with the government. So very early on, around March or April, we launched the search ad grants together with the Department of Health and PCOO. And that was maybe 2 weeks of discussion, and we were able to get it up and running. And then after that, with the DOH, we plotted all of the COVID-19 testing centers on Google Maps. And basically, doing that previously would have taken like months. But of course, we didn't have months, so we were quite fast in basically getting it done. And so, the speed of getting things done is something that was inspirational during the early parts of COVID, and it's something that we can realize that as we move forward in 2021 and moving on, we can get things done very quickly as long as we work together and collaborate really, and have a common objective and a common purpose.
I have a follow-up question. So Carlo
Sure.
mentioned about cloud, and Gustav actually talked about AI, and Google is actually at the forefront of these. What do you expect now? It seems that AI and cloud have enabled most organizations or many organizations to continue their operations on a work from home scenario. What is the future of cloud and AI in the Philippines? And do you think that people will now adopt it wholesale? I mean, companies adopt it wholesale.
Yeah, so it's a good question, right? So the Philippines has always had a cloud first policy. So that's one thing, that we can be very proud of. I think one of the challenges is while we have a cloud first policy, the systems are not yet in place to be able to really enable the government to be fully on the cloud, right? And so, for example, if a government agency wants to procure cloud services right now, they would still go through the normal tender process, having three suppliers bidding and everything. Ideally, the government will be able to have a centralized procurement mechanism so that the different government sectors can just procure cloud services through a simplified process. That's number one. And number two is, an example that I can think of is like in the I think sometime in May, several stakeholders, Google, Viber, Facebook, we all worked with the Department of Health in coming up with a chatbot for the Department of Health. And this was a cross-functional collaboration where Viber took care of the chatbot for Viber, Facebook did theirs, and then Google, we took care of the natural language processing so that free-form questions can come in. And this was actually a very nice collaboration because it showed that the private sector can work together and collaborate to come up with a machine learning AI project for the government. And again, we did this, I think, in less than a month. It was launched from initial idea to concept to actually launching. And so we're hopeful that this experience has taught us, number one, the value of cloud, the value of being able to really tap into the technologies that are available out there so that, even when we're no longer in a crisis situation, everyone has appreciated now the value of digital and the value of the cloud.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Yves. And I think with that, we're highlighting now the various stakeholders from large corporates to the infrastructure sector to government. But I think this is a question that David will well placed to answer. So David, as CEO of Multisys, I'm sure you've discussed and worked with a lot of SMEs who are also trying to adapt to this crisis and hopefully looking for a way forward next year. What's the top mind of Multisys now to ensure business continuity and strong recovery, not just for itself, but for many of its SME clients?
Yes, Jove. Even before the pandemic, our mindset is already more on empowering businesses. Our model is quite agnostic. We develop a lot of platforms to support our clients and partners. We don't compete actually. We enable a lot of partners every time that they need a technology to distribute. So we provide them solutions and platforms for them to operate as a business and as a partner or as a B2B or as a B2C business. So we consider ourselves as a enabler or an integrator to most of our partners. So top of our mind is, of course, after during the pandemic, we're quite affected, and we see a lot of partners, we see a lot of clients being affected. We see a lot of friends and families that they're suffering because of this pandemic. So we don't have choice but to lend our strength to our partners, and we need to make sure that they have a digital play to use, for them to start their business. That's why we're able to expedite our launching of platforms like our e-commerce. That's why we're empowering now a lot of e-commerce businesses in the Philippines. Currently, we have like 1,200 partners on that field. Of course, we need also to back up the government, and we're able to develop StaySafe.ph as the official contact tracing now in the Philippines, because we all know that safety is the best policy nowadays, Jove, and you cannot operate without making sure that your clients, your customers, your employees safe every time that they operate in the new normal. So we don't have choice but to to help the government. I'm working with Yves, with Google. We're quite we sacrifice a lot of efforts, time and money just to make sure that we can contribute something to the government, to make sure that we'll be able to somehow contribute in mitigating this pandemic. So especially in the healthcare. Healthcare is now a necessity industry in the Philippines, and we also launched our HealthBox platform. So HealthBox is basically an end-to-end healthcare platform to support also our laboratories, our hospitals, our healthcare workers to make sure that they are not just safe, but they can expand, okay, during the pandemic. I think technology enablement is the mindset of Multisys to make sure that businesses can continue their business and to have a strong recovery. And of course, when you mention the word recovery, this is not just you, not just Multisys. It's all throughout a network of partnership. That's why we focus on partnership. Currently, we have like 125 technology partnerships now in Multisys. Imagine that huge partnership that we don't compete, but we enable our technology to them. If they have something, we can use that. If we have something, they can use it. It's a learning process. It is a huge word to mention that we are the only one contributing. It's everyone's efforts, everyone's duty now to support each other, to contribute this strength with each other, because we all know that no company is perfect. No big conglomerate can do everything. But the moment that we merge our strength all together, we combine these skill sets, this vision, this strengths that we have, especially in technology. Technology is literally an enabler already to everyone. We need a digital play. So for us, we focus on those activity, Jove. And lastly, of course, if you ask me, I always focus on relevance. You can do a lot of things here. You can create any kind of technology out there, but I think it's best if you focus on relevant solutions. And as a technology enabler to everyone, we'll be happy to lend our shoulders. And if our clients also lend their shoulders to us, so we are gladly use their technology as well. It's a give and take relationship. So it's a collaboration that everyone should have. So that's my insight, Jovi.
Yeah, I think with because of what happened the past few months, and I think moving forward, definitely it's cooperation, collaboration is a buzzword, is a theme that a lot of former competitors are rediscovering. I'd like to have one more follow-up question. How about for small, medium enterprises? I mean, the large corporates, they have the resources to make it work, to ensure that they have the technological capability. But a lot of SMEs are struggling in their cash flow. What can you suggest? What can you recommend for SMEs that would like to adapt to a more digital and connected business ecosystem?
That's a very good question, Joby. Actually, last month, we were able to launch 3 new platforms. So this is to support SMEs because they cannot afford to invest in a very expensive, solution for them to operate. You need to give them a free system that they can, use for them to operate in the new normal. Part of this solution, we have our own delivery box platform that they can easily tap delivery services without buying a certain technology. We were able to combine like 15 courier groups in the Philippines. We also launched our own Starbucks platform. It's a digital online shopping system where SMEs can use without spending anything. They can freely use the platform for them to sell and for them to to operate in the new normal. And gladly, we also launched our own bill box platform where you can easily collect and bill using whether bank or cash or online banking or e-wallets. So we're able to integrate that in a single platform so that people can use it agnostically, especially in the cashless, contactless, and paperless environment now that we have in the Philippines.
Interesting. So there's a lot of things that are being offered to SMEs, and I'm sure it's not just Multisys. There's a lot of players that are focused on this space, and for the SMEs listening in, this is probably an opportunity to, if you're not yet on board, be on board. So thanks, David. I'm going to go now to Gustav, and Gustav, as CEO of Collectius Group, you have a regional perspective. Can you cite specific scenarios where technology played an important role in ensuring business continuity? I mean, you do have a lot of financial institutions as clients. How are they coping?
Thank you for the question. It's a little bit, I think right now everybody's trying to figure out what is the the damage, the hurt, and everybody's focusing on maintaining the customer relationships and understanding that customer right now not able or not willing to pay because situation is very difficult. So I think the winners out of this will be the guys that have systems and processes that can easily change the strategy so that you can maintain, you know, a positive relationship with your customer throughout the time, showing that, you know, we are here with you in this difficult time and we're not putting unnecessary pressure on you. And so when it will, when the economy starts growing again and people feel more positive and less worried about the future, that you will still have a customer that wants to deal with you. And I think some of the players that are making the mistakes that that haven't been able to shift. So I think things like that are critical to win in these times, you know?
Yeah. So I have a follow-up question. At the beginning, we started with organizations and people within those organizations adapting. But your business is focused again on people outside the organizations, meaning the end customer. We also understand that the past few months have highlighted the need for strong cash flow, even at the household level. How do you think what's happening now at the end customer level? Your objective is to make your clients debt free, but how is it going along? And what do you see will be the scenario in the next few months for them?
For the end customer.
For the end customer.
I think, you know, as the economy turns around, what we already started seeing as soon as the CQs were lifted, the customers became much more positive and much more willing to settle. So I think this will shift pretty fast once everybody feels assured. And now we have so many technologies also in the medicine space, like vaccines and things like that, that will start coming in probably first, second quarter, maybe third quarter next year. And then I think business continuity will go back to something that, you know, felt like before COVID. And then probably COVID has helped us to pivot in to customer focus, cloud, automation, customer-centric solutions that are going to benefit us also after COVID. So crisis normally means two things. You know, it's a problem at short, but it's also an opportunity in the long run if you go through the initiation.
Yeah. So I guess for everybody in this panel, 2020 has been a rude awakening for everyone. But yeah, it may be a rude awakening, but it has also shifted the mindset of a lot of players, and customers, from what used to be analog, more digital, and from what used to be business as usual. People are now being pushed to really rethink business processes. And I guess this question is for everybody in the panel. I guess I'll start with you, Gustav. 2021. I mean, 2020 is almost done. But 2021, what do you see for 2021 in terms of the recovery and using technology to accelerate recovery?
I think we have done some amazing stuff, and I share that with the other panelists that, you know, the ECQ pushed us in just a few weeks to kind of set up working from home stations. And in our industry, where we're dealing with a lot of sensitive data, being able to set that up in a secure manner using Microsoft Teams, using face recognition technologies, using we used Microsoft Dynamics CRM cloud-based to be able to manage the working from home situation. And this is really going to benefit us when we get out of this, because the organization is so much more digital, and also the customer offering at the end. We have the customer portal, we have the omni-channel, all these things that we leapfrogged really, really quickly to be able to adapt to this new norm is going to make everything much, much more transparent with data analytics in next year. So I'm super excited about next year when the economy is turning around, and it will.
Fingers crossed. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we said. 2020 is going to be the year. Hopefully, 2021.
Yeah.
So Yves, I guess Yves, from your perspective, what's 2021 for Google in the Philippines?
So for us, I think we're optimistic that what we all went through in 2020 has enabled more people to appreciate the value of digital. Not just the SMEs but also the government, such that before it was always you were working very hard to explain the value of going digital, but 2020 made that self-explanatory. So we're hoping that in 2021 and moving forward, all of the stakeholders will really already appreciate the value of digital and really, like you mentioned, pivot their strategy around having a solid digital strategy, regardless of whether there's a pandemic or not, right? Because again, for a small business to be able to sell globally, you really need to be digital, right? And even for a small business to sell when you're no longer allowed to, to have dine-in, for example, you need to be digital. And then for the government as well, to be able to continue having meetings, you need to be digital. And one of the sharings that I wanted to share today was, this year was the first time that even with legislation, when we're consulted by the Senate and the House of Representatives, everything is digital now. And so if you have a suggested phrase, for example, you can just type it. So previously, these were all in a face-to-face meeting where you're not allowed to really have a laptop and be typing, right? But because of what we've gone through this year, some of the old ways have been shifted, and so we're hoping that moving forward, we as a Filipino country, we as a country, we're able to really embrace it further, and really, it's because that is one of the ways that we can really recover quickly. Whether it's on the economy and even for education. So one of the things Google focused on this year is really helping the Department of Education with this big challenge of remote online learning or distance learning. And so one of the solutions there, not the only solution, but one of the solutions is really to use digital tools. And so that's why Google issued a Google for Education account for all the 22 million plus public school students in the Philippines, because we know that this is not the only solution, but this might help for those who need it. This might help, and so really the value of digital has been highlighted this year, and we can only hope that we don't forget it, regardless of whether there's a pandemic or not.
Thank you, Yves. Really, digital is the way to go. People are adapting, government is adapting. And I guess this is a question ripe for Jallain. Jallain, in your discussions with your clients, what is 2021 for them?
Yeah, well, actually, when I was thinking about the answers of my co-panelists, I was really more into the theme of this event, which is really people and technology. And I think they've mentioned about technology is really quite important. I've stated that earlier as well. But what we're missing is really more in how you need to focus on people as well, and having a people first mindset is quite important in order to achieve enterprise resilience for a lot of organizations. And on top of people first mindset, of course, organizations would go for customer centric solutions in order for you to be more adaptable and be more relevant in your industry and in the business. So I think it revolves around those two areas, and for me, technology will just follow. And as they say, necessity is the mother of invention, right? So basically, if there is a need, then there will come a right technology to be able to address the need. So I think it all starts with people and understanding the needs of the market. And that's really how KPMG views 2021, protecting not just our own people, but really be more people centric, client-centric and trying to understand what's the current need so that we can adapt to their needs and be able to introduce solutions, and not just our consulting service, to be able to take advantage at the same time helping our clients and the community. Joe.
Right. So it what used to be just business as usual, now we're going to the fundamentals, which is really who is your market, who is your customer, how do we best
Right.
serve them. I mean, this is not anymore about reacting to a pandemic or a crisis situation, but moving forward. Good
Right.
point. So I guess this is where David will now discuss a bit more about him. David, you mentioned about relevance a while ago. What is your top 2 relevant, I would say, program project that you would like to see done for SMEs?
We are, that's quite a tough question, Joey, but actually we are a solution-focused strategy company. So meaning once we understand the problem that we face, so we focus our mindset in the solution. So maybe I can name 2.
Yeah.
First, maybe we would like to focus on healthcare, since this is a necessity nowadays, and now we are like we are backing up like more than 60,000 establishments, since we have to deploy like the safety seal in the Philippines for them to operate, for them to start again their restaurants, their mall, their businesses. So we need to focus on that, and to promote also a digital play. So when I said digital play, we have to embed contactless, cashless, and paperless modules in their ecosystem. Okay, for them to to have this quick recovery in terms of like business continuity nowadays. And well, integration and innovation is also the key. So we focus on that. We're able to lend our shoulders to our partners. They don't need to spend that much. In fact, we have a platform that they can just use it for free, and we do revenue sharing. We don't want to be greedy, like sell and you buy before you can operate. We can, hey, use it, then both of us, we help each other to make revenue. So it's all about empowerment. And lastly, there are some disconnect and gaps in terms of like technology in the Philippines, and integration is very important. So that's why our integration as a service is now a big thing in our company. So we continue to strengthen our focus there as well. Jove, thank you.
Thank you, David. Last but not the least, Carlo. Telecommunications is fundamental for 2021, I'm sure. There's a lot of shift to online and digital. What is 2021 for Globe, and what is 2021 for your ecosystem, for your partners, for your customers?
Yeah, I think with 2020 winding up, I think 2020 really and the pandemic woke us up. It woke us up to the benefits of digital and so forth, right? But I really think that just because you woke up doesn't mean you're fully functional, right? If you get up in the morning, you're kind of a little groggy, and I think we're really at that stage. Right now, I think 2021 is when we really turn it up a little bit and really wake up, have our coffee, and be productive, right? Because I think right now everybody's going to this mindset of digital. Big companies like Globe, we're looking to be agile and really shift this experience to a more digital and a quicker way to be able to accomplish what we want to accomplish. But the reality is we're still missing some fundamental things. As an example, the technology is there to accelerate, but I think the people still don't trust it fully. There's still a lot of people out there that are still waiting for their paper something or a paper bill to do something, right? They're still looking for some physical assurance to go to a store instead of doing something digital online. And I don't think that everybody has really figured out how to really utilize the technology available to us today. The technology is way beyond what I think we can utilize. And really 2021 is going to be a matter of expanding and really increasing the collaboration and awareness of what's possible with what we have. Because what we have is very powerful. We have cloud, we have AI, all this stuff is already available. And for me, it sometimes saddens me when I see these businesses, especially the small businesses and the people, that are struggling with a problem that can easily be solved with a very simple solution, but they just either don't know or they don't trust. So there's a lot of self-education. You hear about some folks sometimes struggling with getting the right service, attention to service. And really, there's a way to do it if you just knew how to do it digitally. And we as organizations, I think, need to continue to enable that in 2021. We need to be that coffee. We need to get that injection in there to wake up and really get people to go, hey, you know what? You don't need that paper. No, we don't need that. We can do it all virtually. We can do it digitally. We can transact business. We can do finance. And with that, I think it's going to be an exciting year ahead of us and really looking forward to it.
Wow. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure having a talk with you this afternoon. It's already 4 o'clock and our time is up. But yeah, hello.
Hello.
You're still there.
Yeah, I guess my video conked out. Anyway, thank you. Thank you very much for your time. It's been a great talk. It's been a great discussion. 2021 is the year where we wake up, really wake up and make things happen.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
everyone.
Mhm.
Bye.